Today we're gonna put together a pepperoni pizza sourdough loaf. I have to use cheddar because I couldn't find a block of mozzarella. I'm gonna start with 370 grams of room temp water. Perfect, I got 370 on the dot. Okay, here's my starter. See how it's just covered with little bubbles and then it's starting to kind of drop in on itself? I'm gonna use 100 grams of our starter. Going to whisk the starter into the water until it becomes kind of like a milky consistency. That should be good. So there's still a little bit of chunks. That's totally fine. Back to the scale. I use King Arthur bread flour, blue bag. I get this at BJ's. You can get a 10-pound bag for like 9 or 10 bucks. They have coupons a lot of the times too, which is fantastic. So 500 grams. I add my salt right now. If you're in the camp of adding your salt in an hour, feel free to add your salt in an hour. Do whatever works best for you. And I do 10 grams of good old Morton. You can take a rubber spatula or any sort of mixing device and mix it up. If you are using a metal spoon, that's totally fine too. Do whatever works best for you. Gonna get this as much stirred as possible with this spatula. And then I'm gonna transition over to my hand to really start working the dough. I like to get all of the flour scraped off the sides, so we're not adding that in any later in the process. It's at this point where I recommend taking off your rings. This is a good time for me to remind you I am not a professional. I'm just a mom who likes to bake for therapy purposes. Now, it is very tempting to stop mixing your dough at this point, but I would encourage you to keep going past this point. I typically go 3 to 4 minutes past this point, but I actually just read a post by Tom from the Sourdough Journey saying that you should actually go like 9 minutes. He might have been quoting somebody else or he said it, I'm not sure, but we might try going 9 minutes today. So I just am basically massaging the dough, and I want it to become, the way I describe it is a super creamy, cohesive dough ball. I want it to come together into a dough ball, and you want that gluten to start glutening, okay? I will do like my version of slap and folds as well. I'm not sure what you're saying, baby girl. What kind?
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna do like creamy sausage.
What kind, Mom?
It's really starting to come together nicely. I can see the different consistency. And I think I'm gonna pull the trigger and stop right now. Look at the difference from when we first mixed it to now. So I'm gonna get it kind of all in a ball in the middle. After I pick as much as I can off my hand, I just take a handful of flour and then I wash my hands with the flour over the garbage can. At this point, I'm gonna take the temp of my dough with just a regular old meat thermometer. I'm gonna write down the time that I mixed the dough, which is 8:35, and then I'm gonna write the temp that it is right now. 72.9, which is kind of where I want to keep it. So I'm going to put my microwave in a closed environment with the light on just to kind of keep the heat in the dough. If you want to learn more about temping your dough, head on over to the Sourdough Journey's YouTube channel. He explains it amazing, and he created like the scientific chart and all that stuff to follow. It has been such a help in my bulk fermentation. Highly recommend heading over and listening to that. I'm going to cover it with just a plain Jane shower cap, gonna let it rest 45 minutes. Then we're gonna start our stretch and folds and add inclusions. While our dough is resting in the microwave, I'm gonna go ahead and prep our inclusions. I don't like putting freezing cold cheese in my warm-ish dough. I don't want to drop the temp of that dough too much. So I'm gonna shred my cheese now, chop my pepperoni, and let that start coming to room temp. I'm not gonna go too heavy on the cheese today because the pepperoni is oily as well, and I don't want to weigh the loaf down too much. So I think this is probably around 3/4 of a cup of shredded cheddar cheese. I do prefer to shred my cheese versus cubing it because you get it way more evenly distributed if you add it in during stretch and folds, but do whatever you like best. Doing a stack about that big of pepperoni, I just cut it into kind of like diced size pieces. All right, I'm gonna spread it into a thin layer to let it start coming to room temp. It has been about 45 minutes. My inclusions have come just about to room temp. And we're gonna do our first stretch and fold and add our inclusions. But first, I am going to take the temp of the dough right now. I'm gonna write the time, what I'm doing, which is a stretch and fold, and the temp. So it went up a little bit, 73.4. I have one hand that's damp, one dry. This is my folding hand, this is my inclusion hand. I'm gonna take a small handful of the inclusions, and then I'm gonna kind of scrape up under the edge like that, and then pull it up and lay it over, just like that. I'm gonna do it again. Inclusion. Get my hand a little more wet and then scrape up under the side. Pull it up and fold it down over. Just like that. A third time. Inclusion. Up and under. Pull, don't rip, just pull and fold it down and over. With our last little bit of inclusions. That looks so yummy. Get under it, pull, give it a wiggle, stretch, and fold it over, like that. Then I just like to kind of tuck that last edge up under like that, get it into a ball, like that. I'm gonna cover it and we'll come back in another half an hour. In a half an hour, document the time, write what I'm doing, which is gonna be a coil fold, and the temp dropped on this. Let's see. Okay, it's around 70.5, which it dropped like 3 degrees. Just wetting my hands. Going to get underneath the dough like this, just to kind of separate it from the edge of the bowl on both sides right here. Then I'm gonna tuck my hands underneath like this. Can you see that? There's my hands. Now I'm going to pull it up and then fold it down like that. Gonna turn it and do it on the other side as well. Do it again until it comes off the side. If the dough is sticking to your hands too much, just get them wet again. Now we're doing it in the other direction. And it should look like a nice little log when you're done. I'm gonna cover it. Come back in another half hour for our third fold. Back for our third fold with our thermometer in hand. It's been like 35 minutes, so 10:35. Doing a coil fold. We're warming up a bit. We're back to around 72, which is kind of right around where I want to be. I want to be between like 72 to 74-ish. Wetting my hands, going under, scooping, and pulling. Oh, I'll bring it up for you. Just leave it there, baby. See how it's really coming together into a nice cohesive ball. Tucking the edges. I'm gonna cover it, let it rest for our last 30 minutes, and we're gonna come back and do our last coil fold. So I'll see you then. We're on our final folds. The dough is really coming along nicely. See how much bigger it's getting? You can see on the bottom, air starting to form in there. Let's take our temp one more time. 73.4. These are what my notes look like. Just putting the time, what I'm doing, and the temp. There we go. Now I'm going to cover it and let it sit until bulk fermentation is done, and then we are going to shape it. I will come back in a couple hours and we'll check the progress on it. I am going to keep it in kind of a warmer space just to keep that temp at that, temp. My house is kind of cold, it's in the 60s, and I don't want it to drop that low, so I'll be back in a few hours. It's been 5 hours since we mixed our dough, so we're about 5 hours into bulk fermentation. I was just doing a temp check. My temp dropped to around like 71.8, 72. We still got a ways to go. I'm looking for this to get just full of life, and we're not there. See how it's still pretty stiff? Still kind of looks like silly putty. It's just, there's not a ton of life to it yet. So we're gonna give it another 2 hours, then we'll check in. It has been 7 hours since I mixed the dough this morning. I am going to go ahead and shape it because the dough temp got a lot warmer than I wanted. So we're gonna go ahead and shape it. I have a banneton right here, just lined with a tea towel. I am gonna go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of flour in it. I like to hit the counter, whoops, with just a little bit of flour and a little on top of the dough. Do a pre-shape on this. So push forward with this hand and pull back with both. Push forward with your right hand, pull back with both. You don't have to go crazy and really rip on it, but just push and pull. The sun just came out and it is a miracle. I just want to sit here in it. Okay, so we have it in a nice ball. Cover it with a tea towel, let it rest about 20-ish minutes, and then we'll final shape. It's been about 40 minutes, I forgot about it. But that's okay. So we're gonna do a final shaping now. I'm just gonna flip it over. Ooh, there's some pepperoni coming through. You see that? Okay. Cinderella. You wanna watch Cinderella? Okay. Oh, you're gonna read it? All right. So I just have it kind of in a circle. I'm gonna take the bottom half and fold it up about a third of the way. Then I like to kind of pat it down. Take one side, I pull it out and then fold it over. Take the other side, pull it out, fold it over. There we go. We're gonna roll. This dough feels really nice. Then I just pinch the ends closed right here on both ends. And that's it. That looks really nice. Let me show you. I'm gonna transfer it over to our floured banneton. I'm gonna let it rest about 20 minutes and then we're gonna come back and stitch it up. It's been another half hour or so. That's what it looks like. We're gonna stitch it. So I just take one side and pull it up like this, and then fold it over and kind of tap it down. That's what it's looking like.
Dad, look at my chicken.
Flour into the fridge until tomorrow, and we will bake it.